You ruled the mightiest empire on earth. Statues in your honor, gods at your command, armies ready to die for your name. And yet, your final moment is slipping in the bath. Welcome to Rome, where being emperor didn't guarantee dignity. In fact, sometimes it guaranteed the opposite. Let's start with the man who made dying in a steam room into a full-body tragedy, Emperor Titus. Known as the darling of the human race, Titus had just completed the Colosseum and won the hearts of the people. No small feat in a city accustomed to emperors who either set things on fire or stabbed their siblings. He was young, popular, and charismatic. For once, it seemed Rome had a ruler who could both govern and smile at the same time. Then came a mysterious fever and a poorly timed journey to the countryside. Desperate to recover, he bathed in the hopes of sweating it out. Ancient medicine, after all, had two answers for everything: water or bloodletting. As the steam rose and his condition worsened, Titus reportedly exclaimed, "I have made one mistake." Moments later, he dropped dead. No one knows what the mistake was. Some thought it was political, others whispered about poisoning. But maybe the mistake was simpler. Traveling while ill in an empire full of poison, parasites, and political rivals wasn't the smartest move, especially when your enemies owned the kitchens, the bathhouses, and the physicians. Next, meet Emperor Carinus, a man best remembered not for ruling, but for partying. He treated the empire like a personal festival, neglected the government, and turned the imperial court into something closer to a bachelor's banquet. Extravagant orgies became routine. Administrative duties, optional. He reportedly paraded around Rome in silk robes, more concerned with his wardrobe than with warfare. And as for boundaries, he seduced the wives of his own generals and courtiers, turning palace politics into a soap opera. One of those officials eventually got a bit testy about it. At the Battle of the Margus, just as Carinus was about to secure a much-needed victory, he was stabbed to death by one of his own officers. Not by an enemy general, by a jealous husband. And that's how Rome lost a civil war, to marital drama. His troops had fought and bled, only to watch their emperor fall to a bedroom scandal. Turns out, pillow talk can be deadlier than swords. Then there's Emperor Didius Julianus, whose claim to fame was literally buying the throne in an auction. After the Praetorian Guard murdered the previous emperor, they didn't seek a successor, they opened the bidding. In full armor, standing on the palace steps, they asked, "Who wants to be emperor?" Didius, a wealthy senator, outbid his rival by promising each guard a massive bonus. "Congratulations, you're emperor," by credit card. But Rome wasn't a fan of eBay politics. The people booed him in the streets. The Senate smiled politely and sharpened their knives. Just 9 weeks later, they declared him a public enemy. Soldiers stormed his palace. Didius reportedly wept, begged, and even offered to refund the empire. He tried appealing to their patriotism, to their wallets, anything. The guards responded by slicing his head off. Turns out, cashback offers don't go far when your approval rating is 0. Especially when your rise to power looks more like a yard sale than divine destiny. But few exits match the weirdness of Emperor Jovian. After negotiating peace with Persia, a treaty that many saw as humiliating but necessary, he was hailed as a savior who had preserved Roman lives. Morale was low, the army was exhausted, and Jovian was their unlikely hero. But then came the journey home. While resting in his tent one night, he ordered a brazier lit for warmth, standard practice in the cold Mesopotamian air. Unfortunately, the ventilation was poor. The smoke built up, oxygen dwindled, and the Emperor of Rome died quietly in his sleep. Cause of death? Asphyxiation from charcoal fumes. That's right, the man who ruled the greatest empire on earth accidentally hotboxed himself to death with a campfire. No assassination, no betrayal, just a tent, bad air circulation, and a tragic lack of fire safety. The next morning, they found a lifeless emperor, still dressed for bed, the empire's fate hanging in the smoky air. Let's take a turn to the flamboyant and fatal with Emperor Elagabalus. At just 14, he became emperor and promptly horrified Rome with his religious reforms, cross-dressing, and lavish parties. He didn't just challenge norms, he detonated them. He replaced Jupiter with a Syrian sun god, married multiple women, and reportedly a male charioteer, and demanded to be addressed as a goddess. He once invited dinner guests to a banquet where the courses were made entirely of pebbles, air, or paintings of food, an evening of surreal starvation masquerading as art. He released wild animals during feasts just for fun, trapped guests with rose petals dropped from ceilings, and allegedly offered fortunes to surgeons who could provide him with female genitalia. Rome was scandalized. Senators were confused. The military was furious. Performance art has its limits, even in Rome. Eventually, the Praetorian Guard had enough. Elagabalus tried hiding in a chest. It didn't help. He was dragged out, stabbed repeatedly, his body mutilated, and thrown into the Tiber. They didn't just want him gone, they wanted every trace of him erased. Statues were toppled. His name was scratched from inscriptions. Rome wasn't just done with him, it wanted to delete him from memory, as if he had never ruled at all. Of course, we can't forget Claudius, Rome's most unlikely emperor. Thought to be a harmless, stammering uncle, he was mocked for his limp, drool, and nervous tics, hidden away from public life for years. And yet, after the chaotic assassination of Caligula, the Praetorian Guard found him cowering behind a curtain and declared him emperor. He turned out to be competent, too competent for his own good. He expanded the empire, reformed the judiciary, and even took personal interest in provincial matters. But political success didn't protect him at home. His wife, Agrippina the Younger, had other plans. Eager to promote her son Nero, yes, that Nero, she served Claudius his favorite dish, mushrooms, laced with poison. When the dose didn't work fast enough, ancient sources claim a poisoned feather or enema was used to finish the job. He died in agony, choked not by politics, but by fungus and poultry tools. The irony? Claudius had just adopted Nero as his heir, sealing his own fate with a signature. His final act of generosity became his execution order, and Rome lost one of its few capable rulers to a dinner table and a scheming wife with a culinary agenda. Speaking of Nero, Rome's pyromaniac emperor, his death wasn't any nobler. After being declared a public enemy and abandoned by his guards, Nero fled the city in disguise, dressed in rags, barefoot, hiding in the countryside like a common criminal. He took refuge in a villa owned by a freedman, trembling at every distant hoofbeat. As the Senate debated how to execute him publicly, Nero lay paralyzed with fear, unable to take his own life. He begged his few remaining servants to kill him. None dared. Finally, with shaking hands, he guided a blade to his neck, with help. Even then, he didn't die quickly. He bled out slowly, in filth, moaning, "What an artist dies in me." The final words of a man who thought he was immortal through poetry and song, forgotten not for his art, but for fiddling as Rome burned, killing his mother, and failing at everything else. Spoiler, history didn't misremember him, it just remembered all the wrong parts. And then, there was Emperor Numerian. Not the most famous, but perhaps one of the strangest. In 284 AD, Numerian led his army back from a campaign in Persia. Along the way, he developed an eye condition, supposedly painful and disfiguring. His generals announced he would travel in a closed litter to protect his sight. For days, the army marched, guarded, and revered the curtained platform. But something was wrong. The smell. Eventually, soldiers opened the litter, only to discover that their emperor had been dead for days. His body, decaying in the heat, had been paraded like a puppet. The guards were horrified. The command staff pretended nothing was amiss. And his own father-in-law, who may have orchestrated the cover-up, was conveniently in line for power. It wasn't just death, it was puppet theater, imperial edition.